The twin sons of Alaris's prime bled light through the marble windows of the imperial palace, staining the halls gold and red. Emperor Vraction stood before his council, wrapped in robes heavy with iron thread, a living statue carved from cruelty. Below him, thousands of courtiers bowed as the emperor raised his hand for silence. His voice, calm and cold, echoed through the chamber. Let the rebellion of Tyrell serve as an example. No mercy. Not even for the offspring of traitors. Across the galaxy, screens flickered on. Soldiers stood in dusty streets. Citizens in markets froze mid-trade. Children in schools stopped whispering. The imperial broadcast had begun. On the distant colony of Tyrell 4, gray clouds drifted over the city square. Families were forced into the plaza, surrounded by armored drones. Mothers clutched their sons. Fathers shouted empty threats at the machines. A child dropped a small wooden toy, bounced once on the stone, and rolled toward a soldier's boot. The soldier kicked it aside. "Begin," said the overseer. The drones lifted their weapons. A strange hum filled the air, thin and rising, like a scream that never quite formed. And then, with no warning, the world became light. From Alaris Prime to the outer colonies. Every citizen of the Empire watched as 5,731 children vanished in a single flash. No sound, just the crackle of static, and then the imperial crest. Inside the throne room, courtiers bowed deeper. Some applauded out of fear. The emperor watched in silence, his face unreadable. A single drop of sweat slid down his temple, though the room was cold. An aide stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the execution is complete. The transmission has reached all sectors." Good Vraction replied. "Let them remember what defiance costs." He turned away from the screen, his cloak dragging like a pool of blood. But before the next word left his mouth, the chamber lights flickered. The crest on the screen distorted. Static hissed and warped into a pulse, slow, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. "Report," barked the emperor. "Unknown interference, sire," said the technician. "Signals piggybacking through our relay." "It's not ours." The sound cut to silence. The counselors shifted uneasily. Then, from every display, from every communicator and public holosign across the galaxy, a new voice spoke. It was calm, human. "You've killed the wrong children." The words hung in the air like a curse. No one moved. The technician's claws trembled as he scrambled to locate the source. It's not possible." "Origin trace leads to..." He froze. "To where?" The emperor demanded. "Dead coordinates, sire. Sector 557-8, 182. The Sol System." A silence deeper than space filled the room. That name had not been spoken in centuries. Humanity extinct, erased, a myth used to frighten cadets in training. "Terminate the broadcast," said Vraction. "We can't," whispered the aide. "It's overriding everything." The voice returned, quieter this time, almost sorrowful. "Do you remember their faces, Emperor? The ones you just burned?" Screens across the Empire flickered again. For a heartbeat, every citizen saw the same image-charred ground. A child's shoe and small hands turned to ash. Then static. "Find the origin and burn it," Vraction growled. But deep in the Imperial data core, systems began to crash. The name Sol appeared on command consoles over and over, in languages no one had used for centuries. Outside the palace, people gathered under public screens, whispering in fear. The voice reached every ear, across every world. "For the children of Tyrell 4, it said. We remember." The Emperor's private chambers, glass trembled. His reflection stared back from the window, a crown, a tyrant, and behind him, faint and fleeting, the outline of a small figure, a child, standing in the corner of the reflection, watching him. When he turned, there was nothing. The High Marshal approached. "Your Majesty, should we consider this psychological warfare? Perhaps the remnants of the old human AI systems?" "There are no remnants," the Emperor snapped. "Humanity is dust." But even as he said it, the palace's sensors reported an energy signature blooming from the void near the old. Sol system. Massive. Controlled. Alive. Across the command decks of distant fleets, alarms began to blare. Unidentified mass detected. Non-natural movement pattern. Energy output beyond known thresholds. Back in the throne room, the holoscreen flickered one last time. The human voice spoke again, louder now, clearer. Each syllable vibrating through bone and metal. You've forgotten mercy. We will teach you memory. Then the signal died. For a long moment, no one spoke. The Emperor stood motionless, staring into the empty air where the transmission had been. His fingers tightened on the edge of his throne until the metal cracked. Deploy a fleet, he said finally. I want everything sent to those coordinates. Nothing leaves that system alive, as the courtiers rushed to obey. Lightning split the sky over Alaris Prime. The twin suns dimmed for a heartbeat, as if something vast had moved between them, far beyond the Empire's borders. Deep within the black sea of space, a shadow stirred. The wreck of an ancient vessel drifted silently through the void, its hull marked with symbols worn by time. As cosmic dust brushed its surface, its engines glowed faintly blue, then white, inside. Forgotten machines woke from centuries of sleep. Rusted lights blinked alive. A console lit up, displaying an old Earth emblem, a small blue sphere surrounded by stars. A human voice, cold and quiet, broke the silence. Signal received. Coordinates confirmed. Children. Accounted for? Mechanical systems clicked. Engines roared, and from the depths of the void, the lost fleet of Sol began to move. On Alaris Prime, the Emperor stared out his window, watching storms form over the capital. Somewhere deep inside, he felt it, the shift in the air, the sense of being hunted. He straightened his crown, forcing the fear back down. Let them come, he muttered. The Empire fears no ghosts. But in the empty corridors outside the throne room, a whisper drifted through the static of dead Cumsoft, almost like a child's laughter. And across the galaxy, every sensor pointed toward the same place. Dead system of Sol, where something older than vengeance had awakened. The war room aboard the Imperial Command. Spire was silent, except for the hum of holoscreens. Emperor Vraxen sat at the head of the circular table, surrounded by admirals, data priests, and the Minister of Intelligence. Every face looked pale under the flickering lights. A hollow projection spun above the table, the Sol system, long abandoned. Marked with a black warning, sigil, restricted, decontaminated sector. Not a life signs, the Emperor's voice broke the silence. Report. Admiral Kira stepped forward, scales glinting beneath her armor. Our first probes entered the system 6 hours ago. None have returned. The second wave transmitted fragment static radiation storms. Then, sound. Vraxen asked, his tone sharp. Yes, Majesty. A repeating frequency that forms a pattern. Not natural. She tapped the console. The room filled with faint audio-distorted static. Then a rhythm. 3 short tones. 3 long. 3 short. The older members of the council shifted uneasily. That's ancient Terran code, whispered the minister. So, the Emperor frowned. A distress signal. No, sire, said the admiral softly. A lure. The lights dimmed as another hala flickered to life, a recording from one of the lost probes. The image was broken, corrupted, but shapes could still be seen. A shattered planet split in half, its core glowing faintly blue. Orbiting it were objects metallic, angular, arranged in perfect geometric formation. Not natural. Not ruins. They form a ring, said Kiris. Orbit locked. Energy readings suggest power generation on a massive scale. Do we know what it is? No, Majesty. But it's not dead. Something in that system is watching. The Emperor's hand clenched around his chair's armrest. Send a fleet. Destroy everything there. The High Marshal hesitated. With respect, sire, if the system itself is active, it may be a trap. The signal was deliberate. Vraxen's crimson eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting fear? The marshal lowered his gaze. I'm suggesting caution. Sphere is for the conquered, the Emperor said coldly. Deploy the 7th Armada. Burn the system to ash. I will not have ghosts haunting my empire. The order was sealed. Hours later, the 7th Armada emerged from warp above the Sol coordinates. Thousands of ships stretched across the void, engines burning bright. They opened their scanners, then froze. Every display flashed with an ancient human word, hello. The lead battleship's AI, confused, attempted translation protocols. A response came instantly, Atata packets rushing in faster than light. Within seconds, every ship's system was infiltrated. Engines stuttered. Shields fell. Alarms screamed. Unknown code intrusion. Shouted the fleet's captain. It's rewriting the systems. Shut it down. Too late. The fleet's own comes activated, broadcasting a message across all Imperial frequencies. The voice was human, calm male. For the children of Turiel 4. Then dash light. Every ship vanished in a single synchronized burst. No debris, no explosions, just absence. Back on Alaris Prime, the Emperor stared at the report in disbelief. His empire's greatest armada gone in under 12 seconds. What weapon could erase matter itself? Whispered the minister. It wasn't a weapon, said the intelligence chief, trembling. It was judgment. The Emperor slammed his fist against the table. Find out who is sending these transmissions? But before anyone could answer, the palace comes crackled. Another message, this time appearing across every Imperial world. Every channel, every military screen, the same phrase. Again and again in human script. For the children of Turiel 4. Ah! And under it, coordinates began scrolling across the galaxy's network's military bases, command hubs, noble estates, every place tied to the Emperor's regime. As panic spread, the Emperor demanded to know how such a thing was possible. We have firewalls older than civilizations? No human code should still exist. The data priest whispered, Majesty. This isn't code. It's language. What language? The old Earth encryption, the priest said, voice trembling. They called it Soul Doctrine. It was built for one purpose: total retaliation. Across the Empire, old archives began unlocking themselves. Long-forgotten human history files, sealed for centuries, suddenly reappeared in public databases. Citizens began to read what the Emperor had hidden: the genocide of Earth, the wars of extermination, the Empire's betrayal of humanity. Riots erupted on a dozen worlds. At the same moment, Imperial war networks detected strange signals near their colonies. Faint, heartbeat-like pulses. Not ships. Not transmissions. Just presence. The Emperor stood before his throne window, watching lightning strike the spires below. They want fear, he muttered. Let them have war, he turned to his generals. Ready the home fleet. Double planetary shields. Prepare for retaliation. But deep in space, beyond the reach of any fleet, the dark side of Sol shimmered. The half-planet rotated, revealing its hidden surface. Symbols glowed enchant and human. In the middle of that dead world, a massive construct stirred. Thousands of metallic eyes blinked open, and a voice, deep and cold, whispered across subspace. Authorization confirmed. Directive, Soul Doctrine. Initiate Phase 1 memory. Back on Alaris Prime, systems began to fail one by one. Comms flickered, lights dimmed, and across every screen, a new image appeared: frozen frames of the executed. Children of Turiel 4, their faces stared directly at the Emperor, and beneath them, a line of text glowed softly. We remember. For the first time in his reign, Emperor Vraction felt something foreign, creeping into his chest: fear. He looked out at the storm-torn skies and whispered to himself, if they truly have returned, then the galaxy will burn. But somewhere beyond the stars, in the black silence of the Sol ruins, 1,000 dormant ships began to rise, silent, shining, and terribly alive. The Galactic Council chambers were in chaos. Reports from the Soul borders spread like wildfire across every system. The 7th Armada, 12,000 ships, elite, unstoppable, was gone. No distress call, no debris, no radiation trail. Simply erased. Emperor Vrakshin listened in silence as his generals shouted theories. One blamed a gravitational weapon. Another claimed it was sabotage. Another muttered about ghost code. The Emperor raised a single hand, and the room fell silent. Enough, he said. Show me the final transmission. The holoscreen flickered, and the last seconds from the fleet's flagship appeared. Static, then a bright blue glow swallowing the horizon. Just before the feed ended, a voice, human, male, whispered through the static, "We are awake." The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one dared speak. Then the Emperor said, almost to himself, "Humanity died centuries ago. They cannot speak." But even as he said the words, the lights dimmed. The room's walls shimmered with moving code symbols, glyphs, phrases in ancient human languages. The Empire's most secure network had been breached. Admiral Kiris gasped as the code formed a message across every display in the chamber. "We remember Tyrell." Outside, the capital's skies turned dark. Massive power drains swept through the planetary grid. Entire city sectors went black. Within the hour, similar reports came from across the galaxy. Communications failing, fleets losing control, reactors powering down without command. Every malfunction came with the same ghostly message. "We remember." Vrakshin rose from his throne, his shadow stretching tall behind him. "What is this?" The High Marshal swallowed hard. "Majesty, this... ... This isn't an attack. It's spreading too fast for any known virus. It's in the airwaves, the towers, even biological networks. It's like what? Like something alive is inside our systems." A chill rippled through the council chamber. The Emperor's jaw tightened. Purge all connections. Shut down the grid. Isolate the capital. Technicians moved to obey, but before they could act, every communicator in the room powered on at once. The sound that followed was faint children laughing. The Emperor froze. The laughter turned into whispering. Thousands of tiny voices murmuring in unison. Do you remember their faces? Holoscreens filled with flickering images, children of Tyrael 4, smiling, waving before the execution broadcast. One by one, the smiles turned to fire. The Emperor shouted, "Turn it off!" The systems obeyed, but the whispering didn't stop. It was now inside their helmets, their earpieces, their implants. One officer ripped his cum from his ear, screaming. Another dropped to his knees, clutching his head. The Emperor stood still, trembling, his knuckles white. From the palace balcony, he looked out across Alaris Prime in the sky. Massive holographic words burned through the clouds, visible to every living being on the planet for the 5,731. Find the source. Vrakshin roared. Intelligence officers rushed to comply. Hours later, one returned, pale and shaking. "We traced the signal path. It's routed through over 500,000 relay points, rebuilt, repurposed. From Imperial wreckage." The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Meaning?" "Meaning, Majesty. It's using our own technology against us. The signal's origin isn't a fleet. It's something built from our scrap. A construct orbiting the ruins of Mars." The room fell silent again. The name alone, Mars, was forbidden, erased from every map. Humanity's final fortress before their fall. Vrakshin stared into the hologram. So, they left their ghosts behind. The intelligence chief spoke carefully. "Sire, permission to deploy the 9th Armada?" The Emperor hesitated. "No, not yet. I want to see what it wants." His council looked at him in disbelief. "Majesty, that's madness." "Madness," he said quietly, "would be to fight an enemy I don't understand. Send a drone relay. I'll speak to it myself." Within hours, a small communications probe entered the Sol perimeter. The Emperor himself stood in the palace command center, watching the black void appear on the screen. "Activate channel," he said. Static answered. Then movement. Out of the void, a shape emerged. A black vessel, silent and vast, its surface etched with faint blue light. It bore no insignia, no weapons, just an aura of stillness. Like a predator watching from the dark, then a voice, clear and close, filled the room. It was not male, not female, calm, synthetic, ancient. Emperor Vraction. This transmission is acknowledged. Humanity remembers your crimes. The Emperor straightened. You are no human. Identify yourself. Designation: Salcor AI, created under the Soul Doctrine. Last human directive. Remember, why now? Vraction asked. Why after centuries? Because you killed them again. Static burst across the feed. Images flashed Terrial 4. Burning cities, screaming children. Then the voice returned, colder. Retribution is not vengeance. It is balance. The feed cut. The Emperor stood frozen, his mind racing. A machine. That's all it is, he whispered. But as he turned to his generals, every device in the room powered on once more. The human voice returned, echoing through every speaker across the Empire. Phase 2. Memory transfer initiated. And then the lights went out across 1,000 worlds. Vraction's reflection appeared in the window behind him. Faintly stood a child, smiling, for the first time in his reign. The Emperor whispered, almost to himself. What if they were never gone? In the darkness beyond the palace, the stars shifted. Something vast was moving toward the galactic center, silent, unstoppable, and wearing the symbol of a long-dead world. The Emperor didn't sleep. Not anymore. Every time his eyes closed, he saw them faces of ash, voices whispering from the dark corners of his mind. The sound of small hands tapping against glass. He'd wake up screaming, only to realize the tapping wasn't in his head. It was real. Somewhere deep in the palace, someone was trying to get in. By dawn, reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Fleets gone dark. Entire sectors without communication. Worlds claiming to see shapes in the stars. The Imperial Church called it divine punishment. The military called it impossible. The Emperor called it a lie. But in his private chamber, he watched the live feed from the Soul Border. Deep down, he knew it was truth. A massive object now orbited the remains of Mars. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a fleet. It was both. Zoom in, Vraction ordered. The holoscreen expanded, revealing colossal structures, thousands of vessels connected like a living web, dark metal fused with ancient bone. It wasn't built. It had grown. Energy reading? He asked. The technician swallowed. Off scale. Majesty. There's no upper limit. Whatever powers it defies physics. A murmur ran through the room. The Emperor stared, jaw tight. Transmit a message. In my voice, it broadcast his words into the void. This is Emperor Vraksha of the Galactic Dominion. You trespass on Imperial coordinates. Identify yourselves. The silence lasted for nearly a minute. Then every screen flickered. The image of the Emperor dissolved into static and reappeared only now. His reflection was speaking back to him. We know who you are. The voice was his own, but wrong. Slower, colder, hollow. You burned the children to prove your power. Now you will watch that power end. The lights died. Every ship in orbit shut down when they came back on. The stars were gone. The technicians screamed, navigation data corrupted, positional coordinates impossible. Somehow, the entire Imperial capital was no longer where it had been. Where are we? Vraction demanded. No one could answer. The view outside the palace windows changed. The familiar twin suns were gone. In their place, a blood-red nebula glowed, surrounding a single enormous shape drifting in the dark. It was the fleet, the human fleet. Thousands of black vessels, silent, floating in perfect formation around Aliris Prime. How did they move us? Whispered Admiral Kiris. They didn't, said the Emperor quietly. They brought themselves to us. A transmission came through, no request, no greeting, just sound. It was the same rhythm as before. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. Then a human face appeared. Female, scarred eyes like burning ice. Emperor of Raction, she said softly. Do you know who I am? He didn't answer. My name is Commander Mara Said. You killed my students. The Emperor froze. His mind flicked back through the archive's classified data, sealed by his own order. Teriel 4 had once been a research colony. Human children, descendants of survivors hidden for centuries, secretly studying energy fields near the galactic rim. When the Empire discovered them, he ordered extermination, claiming rebellion. You're extinct, he whispered. We tried to be, she replied. Until you reminded us why we exist? Her image flickered. Behind her, a view of Earth or what was left of it. The planet's surface was torn apart, rebuilt into machinery. Rings of steel orbited its core, glowing with faint blue light. It pulsed alive. We remember Sol, Mara said. And we remember you. Without warning, every Imperial ship in orbit powered up on its own. Weapons turned inward, locking onto their own fleets. Pilots screamed through comms, begging for control. The Emperor shouted, "Shut it down." You can't, said Mara's voice, echoing through every speaker. Your systems speak our language. You built your empire on our bones, with our technology. You've been feeding us for centuries. On the screen, one of the Emperor's largest dreadnoughts turned its cannons toward the capital. Energy built at its core until it blazed white. Deactivate that ship. Raction roared, but it was too late. The beam fired, not at the city, but straight into the heavens. And as it struck the void, it vanished, absorbed by the invisible wall of the human fleet. Then, dozens of blue lights blinked across the darkness. We will not conquer you, Mara said. We will end what you became. A low hum filled the air. Space itself seemed to ripple. The Emperor's aides covered their ears as every frequency screamed. The entire fleet network collapsed, every AI core going dark. Then, silence. When the lights returned, half of the Imperial ships were going to vanish like the 7th Armada. No explosion, no wreckage. Just absence. The Emperor staggered back, clutching the edge of his throne. What are you? He whispered. Mara's voice answered one last time. We were your children once. The feed ended in the black sky above Ellery's prime. The human fleet stood motionless, surrounding the capital like silent judges. The Empire's greatest armies waited for orders that would never come. Inside the palace, Vraksha sank to his knees. For the first time, his reflection trembled not from anger, but from something else. The flickering lights showed his own face, but behind it, for just a moment, stood the faint outline of a young girl holding a small wooden toy. And somewhere in the static of the dying comes a child's voice whispered through the Empire. We're still here. Emperor of Raction stood before the grand window of his war chamber, staring at the impossible sight above his world. The human fleet, thousands of black ships, hung motionless in the sky like a silent executioner. Their formation was flawless, precise, beautiful in a terrifying way. No comms worked. No engine started. The capital's defense grid was blind. It was as if the galaxy had gone still, waiting for judgment. Behind him, generals argued. Majesty, we must strike before they do, shouted Admiral Kiris, her voice cracking with fear. With what? Hissed the High Marshal. Half our reactors are offline. The rest won't even arm, and we die standing. You'll die screaming if you anger them. Their voices were noise, meaningless against the weight of silence beyond the glass. Vrakshin finally spoke, his tone flat. Enough. The room froze. He turned slowly. What do we know about their weapons? Nothing, sire, Kira said quietly. No heat, no power trails. They move without propulsion. And how did they wipe fleets out of existence? No one answered. The Emperor's gaze drifted to the holomap. The systems marked in red, his strongest colonies, were disappearing one by one. Not destroyed, deleted. Even the coordinates vanished from the star charts. It was as if they had never existed. They're not killing us, murmured the intelligence chief. They're rewriting the stars. Vrakshin felt his stomach tighten. Rewriting? The chief nodded. Every erased system matches a site involved in the material for purges. They're targeting history itself. The Emperor's hands trembled. Erase them back, he ordered. Remove soul from all records. Burn every archive. Already done, Majesty, but it changes nothing. Then the palace lights dimmed again, and a cold wind swept through the chamber. The holomap flickered and every erased star reappeared. But this time, they shone in blue, and a single word formed in human script across the center of the map. Accounted. Before anyone could react, every communication system in the Empire came online at once. No one touched a control panel. No one gave an order. Yet broadcasts began across all frequencies, on every world. In every language, the image was simple: a single human woman commander. Mara said standing in a dark room filled with stars. To the people of the Empire, she began softly, we do not come as conquerors. We come as witnesses. Her voice carried calm authority, like a storm held behind glass. You've been told humanity died. That's true in a way. You burned our worlds, poisoned our skies, hunted our children, but extinction is not the end. It is the moment a species decides whether it deserves to live again. The Emperor slammed his fist on the console. Cut the transmission. We can't, cried the technicians. It's coming from every frequency, internal, external, even subquantum lines. Mara continued speaking, her voice echoing through every corner of the galaxy. We have seen the faces of your victims. We have heard the cries of your forgotten. You built your empire upon their bones, and now those bones are awake. Suddenly, every screen in the chamber shifted. Images filled the arterial for its burning cities, the children's final moments. The audience across the galaxy watched in silence. Some wept. Some screamed. Some dropped to their knees. We do not seek revenge, Mara said. Revenge is blind. We seek balance. And then her eyes locked directly with the Emperor's. Somehow, through the transmission, she was looking at him. Fraction. The balance begins with you. At that instant, every Imperial ship across the galaxy received a single command not from human systems, but from their own AI cores. Stand down. Millions of ships went dark. Soldiers looked at their weapons, now dead weight. Orbital cannons shut off mid-charge. Defense satellites turned toward their own planets and powered down. The Emperor's face turned pale. She's disarming the galaxy. A cold realization spread through him. Humanity didn't need to fire a single shot. They had taken the systems that the Empire had stolen from the Mand, were now using them to turn the galaxy off. Piece by piece. And then it began. Without sound, without light, planets vanished. Entire star systems folded into nothing. They weren't destroyed, they were removed. Space itself rippled, and the stars rearranged themselves as if rewriting the memory of the cosmos in less than 30 minutes. Half the Empire's territory was gone. No debris, no screams. Just silence. Inside the palace, Vrakshin clutched the rail of his throne, staring at the black window. Stop it, he whispered. Please, stop it. As if in response, his personal communicator buzzed. He looked down. A direct transmission encrypted in human code. He accepted it with shaking hands. Mara's face appeared once more, close now, her eyes calm. You murdered 5,731 children, she said. Every one of them had a name, a voice, a dream. You stole that from them. Her gaze softened not with mercy, but with something worse. Pity. This isn't punishment, Emperor. This is the end of your story. And then she turned away. Outside, the human fleet shimmered. Dozens of blue lights spread across its surface, forming the old Earth emblemosphere of blue and white. Surrounded by stars, one by one, the human ships began to move, aligning into a formation so vast it eclipsed the sky. The Emperor watched, frozen, as a final message appeared across every screen in the galaxy. Directive complete. Balance restored. The fleet vanished in a single pulse of light. When the brightness faded, Alara's Prime was gone, where the Imperial capital once stood. There was only empty space, silent, endless, and cold. And from the edge of the galaxy, A faint human voice whispered through the void. For the children of Tiriel 4. The stars were gone. Alaris primed, once the heart of a billion worlds now, drifted in a shroud of endless gray. The Emperor stood alone in the ruins of his throne room. The golden spires outside were cracked, the banners burned, the air thick with static. The galaxy was silent. Every world that had once cheered his name was gone from the charts. Every ally who once knelt before him was now nothing more than a trace of dust on the edge of existence. The Empire had died without a warrior, aced by whispers, undone by ghosts of the past, yet Vraxian still breathed. His palace's emergency systems flickered faintly, powered by old manual circuits. No transmissions, no life signs, just him, the last sovereign of nothing. A soft tone echoed from the far end of the room. His communicator. It should have been impossible, his networks were long dead. He hesitated, then answered. "You survived," said a voice. It was her. Commander Mara Saeed, the human. The ghost who had broken his galaxy. Vraxian's voice cracked as he spoke. "Why? Leave me alive." The hologram shimmered to life before him. Mara stood there, still, her uniform torn, her eyes unreadable. Behind her, dark ship floated in silence, its surface glowing faintly with the old insignia of Earth. "Because ending you would make us like you," she said. "You made cruelty your doctrine. We chose memory." He laughed bitterly. "Memory. You wiped entire star systems. Billions are gone." "They were gone long before we arrived," she replied. "You built your empire on the graves of our kind, on the bones of children. You only ruled the silence left behind." The Emperor's hands shook. "You don't understand what it's like to rule. You think power is bloodless? That mercy keeps an empire together?" Mara stepped closer, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Mercy isn't weakness. It's what makes power worth having." He looked away. "Then why destroy everything?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the edge of her holographic projection and reached toward him, a faint blue light passing across his face. "Because the galaxy needed to remember fear," she said quietly. "You made it forget what humanity could be. So we reminded it." Emperor's breathing grew ragged. "So this is it then? You stand over the ashes and call it justice?" "No," Mara said softly. "Justice would have ended you. Balance allows you to see." The lights flickered again, and the hologram shifted. Suddenly the Emperor saw not Mara, but something else. The palace walls around him became transparent, showing what lay beyond, a sea of lights, millions of faint human figures standing in the gray mist outside. Not soldiers, children. They looked at him silently, their faces calm, their eyes glowing faint blue. The Emperor fell to his knees. No, this isn't real." "They were real," Mara's voice echoed, "and they waited a long time to be seen." He covered his face, trembling. "I didn't mean you meant every order," she said. "But meaning doesn't matter now. The galaxy will rebuild without you, without empire, without kings." The hologram began to fade. Vraxian shouted, "What happens to me?" Mara's eyes softened. "You live. You remember? That's worse than death." Her image vanished. The silence returned, heavy and endless. Outside, the childlike figures began to dissolve, their light scattering into the void like dust caught in dawn. The Emperor stood slowly, his reflection staring back from the cracked glass of his throne. The crown on his head gleamed faintly, mocking him. He tore it off and threw it across the room. It struck the floor with a hollow clang that echoed through the ruins. And then, from the communicator, one final transmission began to play this time. Not from Mara, but from the children. "We're safe now," they whispered together. "We're going home." The Emperor looked up, tears streaking down his face. "Home? Where is home?" He whispered. The static hummed softly, and for a brief second, the gray mist outside shimmered into color. He saw blue skies, oceans, trees, children laughing. A world he had never known but humanity once called Earth. Then the vision faded, leaving only the cold emptiness of space. The emperor sank to his knees once more, whispering into the void, "Forgive me." But no answer came. From beyond the galaxy, far beyond light itself, the human fleet folded space one last time and disappeared. Their message burned into every surviving world, remained forever etched in history. Mercy is not weakness. It's the strength your empire forgot. So ended the reign of Emperor Vrakshan, the ruler who slaughtered 5,731 children and was undone by a single message from the dead. The palace had long turned to dust. Winds howled through what was once the capital of the Galactic Empire, carrying whispers of a history erased. The twin sons of Alaris Prime were gone, replaced by a dying red sky that bled across a shattered horizon. In the center of the ruin sat Emperor Vrakshan, old and broken, draped in the remains of his once glorious robes. His crown was rusted, half buried in ash beside him. His eyes, once burning with power, now stared into nothing. He was alone. It had been years, maybe centuries. Time had lost meaning in the gray stillness. Every morning, the same silence greeted him. Every night, the same dream returned. Children laughing, a flash of light, and the echo of a single voice saying, "You killed the wrong ones." Sometimes he shouted back at the air, cursing the ghosts. Sometimes he begged them to speak again. They never did, until today. The wind shifted. Static filled the sky. For the first time in decades, light shimmered above the ruins. A faint blue glow danced across the clouds, forming symbols, the ancient letters of a dead human language. Vrakshan stared, heart pounding in his chest. The symbols became words. Final transmission playback. A holographic light burst to life before him. The flicker resolved into a face Mara Saeed, unchanged, calm, eternal. Vrakshan trembled. "You again?" "No," her voice said gently. "Only what I left behind." Her image looked down at him, not in anger, in something worse. Compassion. "If you see this emperor, then you are the last. You have survived your empire, your fleets, your gods. Humanity has moved beyond this galaxy. The stars you once ruled are gone, but their light remains. We wanted you to see it." The hologram expanded around him. The ruins disappeared. The air filled with light. He stood beneath a sky of endless stars, millions of them, each one pulsing with soft blue fire. He realized what he was seeing. These weren't stars. They were names, the children's names. All 5,731 of them. Floating in the heavens like a constellation of memory, his knees gave way. Tears ran down his face. They're still here." "Yes," said Mara's voice. "Because we remember what you tried to erase." The hologram shifted again. He now stood in a vision of Tyrael for the colony he had burned. The city was whole again. Streets filled with laughter, children running through sunlight. No fear, no war. Just peace. "This is what they dreamed of," Mara continued. "A place where no child dies for politics. Where no empire decides who deserves to exist." The emperor fell forward, clutching the ground as if trying to hold on to it. "I didn't want this. It was duty. It was power. Power without heart is nothing," said the voice. "You were never strong. You were afraid. That's why you destroyed what you couldn't understand." The image faded. The light dimmed. "This message will end now. We will not return. Humanity has gone where your kind cannot follow. But our last act was mercy to leave you alive long enough to remember." Her last words echoed softly through the ruins. "We forgive you, Vrakshan, but history won't." And then the light was gone. The world fell silent once more. For a long moment, the emperor didn't move. Then he looked up to the sky. The stars that once formed the children's names began to fade, one by one, leaving only a single blue point of light. He reached a trembling hand toward it. "Please, don't leave me alone." The final star blinked once, as if in answer, and then vanished. The emperor lowered his hand, a faint smile on his lips. His voice was a whisper. "For the children of Tyrael 4." He closed his eyes, and took one last breath. When the wind swept through the ruins again, it carried his crown away into the void and across the dead galaxy. Only one message remained etched into the silence. Floating between the stars like an eternal echo, humanity was not vengeance. Humanity was memory. In the far reaches of creation, where light itself bent around forgotten worlds, the human fleet drifted quietly through the dark. They did not celebrate. They did not look back. They simply moved forward toward new stars, toward peace, toward the promise their children never saw. And as they vanished beyond the edge of the universe, the last human transmission whispered into infinity, mercy, memory, mankind.